previous meeting. That's carried as well. Call for post-agenda items. Are there any post-agenda items that we have that need to be added to the agenda at this point? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Holly, all in favor of approving the agenda, please indicate. That is carried. I will note that we have a number of delegations attending today, and we'll take those as they come. The first one being at 10:45, but maybe we may adjust some of those time frames, particularly for some who are in-house. So we'll move down to item number 9.1. Yeah, the tender award for audit services. Stephanie, you're with us here today. So that's the first one that will be bumped up in the agenda. So welcome, Stephanie. Please go ahead.
Good morning. I'm here with a request for decision to appoint the accountants for the audit services. Section 280, subsection 1 of the Municipal Government Act requires council to appoint one or more auditors for the municipality. Our recent contract ended with the 2022 audit with Avail LLP. So we sent out a request for proposals to see to follow the tender process. And we had 2 responses. So I'm here today asking council to appoint Avail LLP as our accountants to take over the auditing services for the next 3 years.
Thank you, Stephanie. Are there any questions or comments? We're ready for a motion. Neil?
How many, you only had two replies?
Yes.
Out of how many did you send out?
We posted it on the Alberta Connection site, posted it on our website, and I did send emails directly to local accounting firms in Brooks and the surrounding areas.
Okay, thank you. Holly, please.
Have you been happy with the services of Avail?
Yes, we have. We have a good working relationship with them. We worked with them over the last 5 years. The other accounting firm that provided a proposal was one that we've also worked with in the past.
Thank you. I think we saw those in the notes. Kelly, please.
I was willing to make a motion to approve as recommended.
Thank you for that. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve the appointment of auditors? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. Let's move on to item 9.2, request to increase Division 1 recreation funding. Welcome, Lane.
Good morning. So we have had a request come in from Division 1, the Rolling Hills Ag Society. They have responsibility for the allocation of recreation funds that are raised for recreation purposes within Division 1. This is something that probably isn't going to be real familiar with council since this term began, but recreation boards will occasionally submit requests to increase their annual allocation. It has been a number of years since there was an increase approved for Division 1. And what the report is recommending to council is that you actually refer this to the 2024 budget discussion. The implications of this increase need to be considered in light of the overall conversation that will be taking place regarding the 2024 budget. So the recommendation is to simply refer to your budget process. Unless council's got some other questions, I can certainly attempt to answer them at this time.
Okay, thanks for that, Lane, and I did read that in your presentation ahead of time. So are there any other questions, or is there a motion to refer it to the budget? Holly, please, go ahead.
Just some clarification. So when a division asked to increase their funding, that comes out of the same pot, so there'll be that much less that is going towards our long-term fund, I'll call it. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Or Ellen, please.
And this would be a permanent increase. This is not just for the coming season, the coming year.
That's right. What they're indicating is that there's a shortfall in funds that they have available for their programs and facilities. And yes, it would be ongoing.
Okay, thank you. Adina, please.
I'm just curious about the 29%. How did they come up with that? Or did they just go, let's go 120,000 and that works out to 29%? I'm interested in the amount.
It's my understanding that what they are doing is they use the recreation funds to cover the cost of utilities for the facilities. And I'm assuming that they have just projected what those costs have been and what they need to have available for future purposes in that regard. One of the things that's, as I've alluded to in the report, there has not been consideration given in the past to providing incremental increases year by year for these recreation boards, and that might be something that council wants to have a conversation on during your 2024 budget deliberations as to whether or not we should just grant cost of living adjustments year after year in order to avoid having to catch up after a number of years of holding the line.
Okay, thanks. Kelly?
So that, not that discussion specifically, but it makes me question, and we don't have the answers because nobody's here to answer them, but what are the operational, what's the operational side doing to ward off the inflation? So have costs been reviewed with other arenas? You know, I have questions around that, but of course we don't have answers to that. So will we be having these groups come in and talk to us at budget time to get these kind of answers, or how will we determine?
It would probably be appropriate based on the requests that you are coming forward with for additional information to let them know that they should be prepared to provide some additional details for council to consider at that time. This is the only group so far, or the only recreation board so far. We don't know if the others are going to be coming in with requests to increase their allocations as well.
Thanks. Father? Yeah, go ahead.
I was just willing to make a motion as recommended.
Okay, I'll probably accept that, but Matt, you had a comment too?
Yeah, recreation is a fun file because we have a number of providers throughout the community, a number of agreements through ICF agreements with our urban partners. We are working with Rosemary, Duchess currently to update agreements there. What I'd like to see with groups like the Rolling Hills Ag Society is that we actually move into a formal agreement with the group, similar to our urban partners, that gives them some certainty on whether it's a 4 or 5 year basis, what they can expect in terms of operational funding support. I like the idea of providing an inflationary increase year over year. It's hard to stomach a 30% increase, so going from 92 to 120. Previously it was 72, and in 2018 it was bumped to 90. I think there needs to be a conversation about what does the user fee side of the equation look like, and that's a conversation we're going to need to have around the council table. Is if folks are coming asking for a 30% increase to be supported by taxpayers, what are the users of the service actually putting forward as well? Because there should be an increase to the user fees there. So that's likely what you're going to see come budget time, is a little more meat on those bones for what we think should be included in an agreement with the ag societies. And then accountability coming back as well in terms of reporting on programming outcomes and financial accountability.
Thanks, Matt. Adina?
I have a question as to whether, is this a case of let's shoot high because we know we're not going to get all that we want? Because sometimes people will do that with a budget. I'm going to ask for, 100,000 because I really want 90,000. So it would be nice, yes, if we had someone to talk to about that.
Okay, thank you. Kelly, did you want to make a motion, or can we have this discussion first? Yeah, we have a motion on the table, so this is good discussion. Neil and then Holly, please.
Yeah, I think this is a real big topic that's going to take a lot of work, more than just a budget thing. Like recreation, and the way Adina just described it, is probably a lot of that going on. And it's just a thorny, the way we're doing it right now is so haphazard that we have to sit down and make sure that recreation follows the tax dollars, make sure it's distributed fair. We're in no position to okay this.
Okay, and I think that's the motion, that we refer it to the budget discussion. Go ahead, Holly.
Just a question about utilities, Lane, because it's clear that their utility costs are going up. I recall that a number of years ago, we were offered the opportunity, or rec groups were, to join into the county's electrical plan, we'll call it that, or power. I'm not sure exactly what it all included. So have most rec boards taken advantage of that, or are people still going on their own? Do you have that information?
A combination of both. The Rolling Hills groups are participating in that program. Keep in mind that any utility bill, there's a couple of different components to it. One is your consumption charges, and the other is your fixed charges related to delivery costs. The locked-in rates covers the consumption charges. Those transmission costs are out of our control, and that's where the pain is being felt.
Thank you, Lane. Okay, we have a motion on the floor to follow the preferred strategy there, that we refer the matter to the 2024 budget review process. Any further comments? All in favor of the motion as presented? That's carried. Thank you. Thanks, Lane. Moving on to item 9.3, review of the asset disposal policies. Welcome, Dustin.
Thank you, Council. So as part of the ongoing county policy review, administration is recommending edits to the disposal of county assets policy and the municipal land sales leasing permits policy. In both these policies, we've made some minor revisions and grammatical changes to help enhance the clarity of these policies. So staff recommendation that policy POL 02723, disposal of county assets, and POL 026023, municipal land sales leasing permits, be adopted as presented. I'll now take questions, discussions.
Thanks, Dustin. Are there any questions or comments? We've had an opportunity to look through that ahead of time. Any questions? Holly, please.
So in regards to the disposal one, or should we talk about disposal one already too? What is in policy that keeps someone from disposing of an asset the best way, as opposed to another way? Let's put this old truck in a derby and have some fun with it, as opposed to let's take it to auction. Like, how does that work?
So currently the process is kind of ran by the directors, that's budgeted, so the replacement comes in. We kind of review a few options there. Typically most items are brought to auction, or we look at the trade-in value Sometimes we have approached some donation requests, but I'd typically say, and then an auction or trade-in is typically what we do. And we have reviewed these kind of prices that we're getting from the local auction marts with some of the bigger ones like Ritchie Bros and Missioner Allen's over time. But typically what we're getting here in the Brooks auction is pretty similar to what we're getting in the big picture ones like Ritchie Bros and stuff too. So I don't know if that answered your question. But.
Well, is the disposal then up to the discretion of the director?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Matt?
Yeah, just to speak to that, I'm not aware of any trucks we've put in any derbies quite yet, but I like the suggestion. We could have a lot of fun with that. Staff are quite aware and cognizant. They have the goal of maximizing value on disposal. And staff are quite sensitive to letting assets go out the door without some kind of oversight. I'll refer council's memory back to the motion council was presented with to let an old fire apparatus unit go to Mexico. So we do like to cover our butts on some of those riskier things. So if we're ever going to put a truck in a derby, we'll come and ask you for permission first.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Neil?
Yeah, I think with your auction, you never leave any money on the table that day, and it's the best way to do things, and I totally support the changes.
Are you making a motion to, not yet, no?
Yeah, I will make the motion.
Okay, as per the recommendation. Yep. All in favor of the motion, please indicate. That's carried. Thanks, Dustin. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
You might as well just finish out 9.9s, and then we can go to Will.
Okay, let's move on to item number 9.4, Councillor payment sheets. Are there any questions about that? We're seeing none. A motion to approve as presented. Ellen?
Yes, motion to approve?
Thank you. All in favor of the motion, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Now let's move to item 9.5, requests for functions of council. Are there any others? We have presented the ribbon cutting at both the Patricia and Rolling Hills fire facilities, fire halls. Are there any others or a motion with regard to those two? Holly, please.
Given that the fire hall question will be coming up again, I would make it a function of council so people can go see what it looks like.
Okay, that's a motion. All in favor, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Are there any other functions of council? Seeing none, we can deal with that later on if something comes up, but we'll move on to back to 8.1. Agriculture Fieldman's report. Welcome, Will. You're filling in for Todd today?
Yes, morning, council, fellow staff members. Yes, I'm filling in for Todd today. He did prepare this report for me, so I am not going to stray too far from the written word here. So I'll begin. As the weather turns and we start to think about putting our summer programs to rest, it's a great time to reflect on the season. Roadside mowing is nearing a close. Most of what the mowers are doing now is widening out the high use roads and hitting areas where the weeds are high on the edge of the gravel. We look forward to having them back in the yard and ready to help with the next phase of fall work. We have completed a grasshopper, bacterial ring rot, fusarium graminarium, and 2 different club root surveys. The grasshopper populations are much higher than our recent year's surveys, and we need a cool, wet spring in order to lower the grasshopper population. Bacteria ring rot field showed no signs of the disease, and we didn't note any club root during the survey this season. Drills have had a long, busy season and are still being moved around for some fall seeding. The numbers to date are as follows. Our conventional drill has seen 11 renters, seeding 1,160 acres. The no-till drills have seen 61 renters, seeding 3,864 acres, and the Brilliant 5 renters with 75.9 acres. Some of our other rentals, livestock equipment, our scale has gone out 3 times, chute and panel, 5 rentals, and our calf table, 3 rentals. Our trap rentals, Magpie Trap, we had 3 renters and we sold 2 traps. And skunk traps, we've had 6 renters for them. Sprayers, so our quad sprayer has been out twice, the insecticide sprayer has been out twice, boomless sprayer, 4 rentals, 3-point hitch sprayer, 3 rentals, and this is probably one you haven't heard of yet, but we have an eco-brand spreader, 1 renter, and it's the first time out since I've been here. So we've had them, they've been on the top shelf, and mostly for putting out bait for grasshoppers is what this is used for. So they've been there, but they just haven't been used. We have 3 of those units. Barbecue has been out 22 times. So we had a great inspection season, but a harder than average control season. Many of our weed sites and our contract spray sites required return trips to get effective control. We don't usually have all of our problem species hitting the control season at the same time. Weeds are great at surviving. We are hopeful we set the vast majority back and didn't allow much to spread. But all in all, we are confident we have staved off many sites from becoming problematic to their neighbors, and we were able to control all of our prohibited noxious weed sites, which is very important. The Riverwalk program on the Bow went very well this season. The crew continues to note a decline in chamomile populations, but some of our restricted weeds, like common tansy, for instance, are now becoming our targets. Water levels were very low, so the crew was able to get to some of the islands that they couldn't in the past. It's not an easy battle, and eventually we hope to win this war of the weeds on this water course. Emerson Bridge continues to be a popular spot for campers. Revenue numbers have increased substantially this season, due in part to monthly leases from people working in the area. We are happy that people continue to enjoy the park and are grateful for our park supervisors that work tirelessly to keep up with the cleaning and help campers enjoy their leisure time. Our EID partnership for shelter belt planting and maintenance, coupled with our help at the Brooks Fish and Game Aqueduct site, kept us relatively busy on the tree front. We are happy to be of assistance and look forward to building on that. Our partnerships continue to be a feather in our cap at Ag Services. Managing weeds and pests is something we take great pride in, whether it's gophers on grassland school properties or weed inspecting and control. The crew does an amazing job. We completed the seasonal contracts and are already planning for next year's programs. Once harvest is complete, we expect to start helping more producers complete their environmental farm plans, a worthy program and a prerequisite for many CAP funding programs. If you can spread the word, we are happy to help. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks for that, Will. Are there any questions or comments? Ellen, please.
Yeah, Will, I'm just wondering, how many seasonal campsites do we have?
So, this spring, I guess, we selected 14 seasonal sites that we would rent out. 8 of them were taken advantage of. So we had 8 seasonal sites. The monthly agreements are what, we had 25 monthly agreements this season, which was quite high, and a lot of that is workers in the area that are staying at the park. So that helped us out immensely.
Okay, that's good. Thanks. Will, any other questions? Seeing none, thank you for that. Is there a motion to approve the Fieldman's report as presented? Holly, please. All in favor, please indicate. That's carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Will. Yeah. Let's move to item number, back in our agenda, item number 7.1, Palliser Economic Partnership. Welcome Barb Kulyk here, new Executive Director for Palliser Economic Development, or Economic Partnership. Have I got that right? Yeah, it is. I will suggest that we'll have introductions to begin with. I don't think we've all met you, but Neil, go ahead, please.
Welcome, Neil Johnson, Division 10.
Hi, Amanda Philpott, Division 8.
Hello, Ellen Unra, and I represent Division 7 around the village of Rosemary.
Morning, I'm Kelly Christman, and I'm from the west side of the county of Newell.
And I represent the GEM area, just the north edge of the county.
Nice to see you again. Welcome, Barb. Matt Fensky.
Good to see you, Barb. I'm Scandia Rainier in Bow City.
Good morning, Adina Scandrip, Division 2 around the Tilly area.
Catherine Siakla, Communications Officer.
Ariana Nielsen, Executive Assistant.
And Lane Johnson is sitting behind you. Welcome, Barb. Why don't you introduce yourself, and we welcome your presentation this morning.
I'm Barbara Kulyk. I live in Consort, Alberta, and I was employed by Palliser Economic Partnership at the end of May of this year. I come from a background of municipal education, in the public sector for years, and as you know, in a small community, it means you're the economic developer and the development officer and basically everything. And I found over the years I became more interested in business opportunities, investment, interested in trade. There wasn't a lot I could do in my community, so when this job came up, I was very fortunate to get this position. And I'm trying to continue the work that Walter Valentini and Quentin Randall had started before me. They had begun a strong groundwork for investment opportunities within the region. I am picked those up, gone back to try and update them. They'll be coming back out to everybody that is a member. And there's a lot of opportunities coming our way with international trade and investment. And so right now I'm trying to familiarize myself what is unique to each area, each member, also what we can provide as a region. So I have a lot of homework to do, and I have been trying to get in front of everybody, every municipality, so I can learn and educate myself. So when I do get these phone calls, I'm ready to respond to these opportunities that we're presented with. The other projects we're doing on the side are, or not really on the side, but we're doing a strategic plan as well for the entire region. This was on the operational plan last year, and we haven't done one since 2017. It's been a very engaged group. We had our first one in Dutchess here last month, or this month, and we're having another one in Medicine Hat, and there's been a lot of great, strong discussion out of the members, and I feel like I'm getting a better idea of the direction that the region would like to go. We are also doing a study in irrigation for the South Saskatchewan River, and we're trying to identify the opportunities that we have there for irrigation. And as I drive this direction, I see you are leaps and bounds ahead of most of us with irrigation, and I would look forward to hearing more about what's going on in this area, in that topic especially.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions? Barb, could you indicate what's the membership of PEP at this point? How many members do you have?
We have 17 municipalities, regions, counties as a total, and we have 2 more that are interested in coming on, and another one that we're back to the table to discuss rejoining. So it looks like we're ready to expand, hopefully. So I have my work cut out for me, but it, you know, that would get us up to 20 if that works out, so.
What does the PEP map look like? Like it covers an area kind of
From Consort all the way to, we have Medicine Hat College, Bow Island, Foremost, Cypress County, Redcliffe. We have Oyen, Hannah, the MD of Acadia, Duchess, Rosemary, Bassano, you guys, and that's about our whole area, I think, special areas 2, 3, and 4. Did I forget anybody?
So basically goes from your area up Highway 13 or 12? 12.
12
No, 13.
and, yeah, and
almost.
straight over 570 this way to 36.
Yeah, and then down to the border.
Yes.
And how many municipalities are there some empty spots in that map, or are there, like, what's the potential for membership, you know?
There's a couple in there that I've looked at. I went straight to, when I began, I went straight to the communities that had left to try and understand why, just so as I went to continue my visits, I wasn't maybe making the same mistakes, or I was aware of what the issues were. I think it's important to know why people are part of PEP, and it's just as important to know why people are not part when they were before. There's a few opportunities for a couple of the municipalities to fill in the blanks or the spaces in that region, but those are some of the conversations that are looking quite promising that I've been in.
Okay, that's good, because I think there's opportunity, but it's certainly there's the biggest opportunities when we're all working together.
Absolutely.
As you understand, for sure.
Yeah, and I've also found that I was extremely happy to see how inviting and collaborative the other RETAs have been. Mm-hmm. I would be quite lost without Peter, Bev, Bob, everybody from Tabor, Lethbridge. They've all been incredibly kind and inviting, and they've really pulled me into the group and brought me up to speed on how things work. Who I report to, the Reds, Jacqueline and Martin in the area, they've been fantastic. So I do feel incredibly supported in this role, which I was worried about a little bit in the beginning, but there's never somebody I can't reach out to. And even when it's not in my area, they're very welcoming. Come and see what they're doing, learn, so when it becomes our turn, I'll be prepared if it's hosting investors or any of their trade shows. They've been welcoming as far as letting me come and see how it all works. So I've been extremely fortunate.
Good. Neil, please.
It sounds like you work in conjunction with Highway 3, that corridor over there, pretty well. I think that's an excellent model, and it's something to keep pursuing, because like Arno just said, it's all the same region.
Absolutely. And I was on the PEP board for 5 years before I took this position with Holly, and on the executive for 2. And I was aware of a lot of these studies, and I was lucky to be able to be part of them. But I've certainly had to brush up on all my reading, go back and revisit a lot of these conversations and a lot of what has happened in the past. And the previous executive director has been good about taking my phone calls and helping me on anything that I needed help with. So it's been an incredibly collaborative community that just seems to want to see us succeed as a region.
Well, that's an excellent model down there. I mean, what they've pulled off economically is something we should all be shooting for.
Absolutely.
And this council definitely is. So
Okay, thank you.
Way to go.
Thank you.
Thank you. Holly, please.
I was just going to share probably the biggest member who's not part of PEP would be the City of Brooks. They pulled out, and I know Barbara's working hard to bring them back into the fold. But perhaps, Barb, you could share what you think some of the successes of PEP have been in the last number of years prior to you coming on board, but where you think PEP has succeeded.
We have a strong agricultural, we have a lot of opportunities for export for some of our plant proteins I'm seeing, and I know we're doing a little bit of that. I do believe that some of the conversations lately with Invest Alberta, we could probably continue to grow that opportunity. We have rail in our area now. We have fiber. We've got, Hannah did they reclaimed the coal mine, and they also have a Humalite business there. We have some, Holly put me on the spot, so I'm trying to think of all the things we've done. But I did put everything in our annual report, and I can certainly leave a couple of those brochures for you. But In the last 5 years that I was on the board, I think that the executive during COVID or when we didn't have a director, I was happy to see we still had a strong executive that was able to move some of those projects forward when we didn't always have a continued presence as a director in the region.
Right, thank you, yeah. Any other questions? Seeing, Kelly, please.
I'll just ask, anything in the near future? Anything tipping the scales of piquing your interest?
Right now, I have noticed that trying to get the region investment ready is, plus get to each community in person, it's a lot of time, and I want to make sure that I'm not missing anything. So I have applied for a federal and a provincial grant so I can make sure that we're marketing PEP to our full ability. I've noticed that we're not on some of the Invest Alberta sites. When we're searched, we don't actually come up sometimes. So I'm working on making sure we're more visible. That's probably my main project that I think I'll have more information that will come out of our strategic planning and the information I'm gathering from each community. I want to make sure that we are investment ready, and if it's small business, big business, I just want to make sure that I'm understanding the inventory of our assets within the region. So for me, that's my priority, is to make sure I'm not caught off guard when I am asked if we have a certain asset. I don't want to miss somebody.
Thanks for that. Holly?
Just going to mention as well, Barbie found some pretty big holes in the website that you've had to try to fix as well. The information hasn't been there, hasn't been connected.
No, and I'm working on that. And I was doing a lot of it myself rather than hiring it out because I felt I could better capture what is actually happening in the region. But I think I'm at the point where if I am successful in getting those grant opportunities, I could turn it over and make it marketable and reach a farther area.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me.
Report to us, and we wish you all the best and look forward to our participation with you as going forward, for sure.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks. With that, Council, let's move to item number 10, Municipal Services Business, and we are reviewing policy 2013 PPW 016 greater sites. Welcome to our Manager of Operations, Terry Schroeder. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Mike, hit the little button. Am I good? Anyway, we currently operate 8 motor grader operators. 7 of them are remote. Most of you have probably seen them out and about. Tilly, Rolling Hills, Rainier. Anyway, over the last 6-7 years, we've made a good effort to move all these sites on to county-owned property. In the last 5 years, we've managed to get them all into a secured compound, which involves chain link fence, a little storage building, and fuel tanks. Patricia will be done here shortly. So I said all of them done, but anyway, that's all done. Anyway, this policy just basically was in place prior to this to allow compensation for graders that were stored on private property. I think when I started here, we had maybe about 4 or 5. So it just basically involved setting up an agreement, compensating them for power and gravel and stuff like that too. So anyway, policy, I just came to council and we recommend that this one be rescinded.
Okay, thanks, Terry. We have the recommendation in place. Are there any questions? Are we prepared to make a move that the recommendation be followed and we rescind the policy as recommended? Ellen, please. That motion to rescind?
Yes, I make the motion to option number 1.
Thank you. All in favor, please indicate. That's carried.
Thank you.
Got it done. Thanks, Terry. Let's move to committee reports, item number 11. First of all, Newell Housing, Councillors Philpott and Skanderup. Are there any comments or questions? We have the reports, right? So.
As presented.
Yeah, thank you. Joint Services. Greg has written a report. He's in his absence. And Rural Health Professions Action Plan. Are there any other any questions about the presented reports? If not, we'll move to Holly, please.
Just a request for the next Newell Housing Foundation report. If you could put the number of units available for each one. It's just hard to remember how many are in each facility, so it'd be helpful if you had that listed for my memory.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to Brooks Regional Tourism Association. Adina.
Okay, so Brooks Regional Tourism has not met all summer, but we did have a Zoom meeting because we had a couple of applications for our EDF, the Experience Development Fund. So I just wanted to let you know about those. The Oil Wives Convention is being held the end of the month, and so they're predicting 200 ladies coming to the convention, 170 from out of town. They asked us for $2,500, and we did grant that for them. The other one that came to us was the Wildflower Greenhouse Studio. I don't know if anybody, they have quite a social presence, social media presence. I don't know if anybody's seen them. They're out there by the aqueduct. Anyway, they came to us. They do some wildflowers and some workshops and stuff. So they came to us. They were asking for $10,500, which was going to use up most of what we had left. We went back with $3,500, and we instructed Jamie to give them the information they needed to apply to New Grow, because we thought maybe that was more appropriate for them. The only other thing I wanted to say is that we're having our first meeting back today at 4 o'clock, and then the AGM is at 5 o'clock at the Heritage Convention site. So if anybody is interested in coming to that, and that's all I have to report.
Thank you, Adina. Are there any questions? Seeing none, I think we can move on. We don't have any post-agenda items, but I'm going to suggest that we move.
Yeah, 12.1.
Oh, I'm sorry. Right, 12.1. Right. Okay. Right. I was bumping to the other side of the pardon me. I'm going to suggest we take a recess, but take your place, and we'll move to Roberta Fernell as soon as we come back. So let's reconvene. What, 11:15? Okay. Thank you. our Director of Information and Technology report for September. Welcome, Roberta. You've had an interesting month or so go ahead, please.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure to be able to report back to Council on the opportunity we were given to speak at the Data Analytics for the Public Sector Summit in Toronto. So that was last week. I thought a couple of things I'd talk about, and of course, any questions that you have, is who attended, what were some of the topics that were discussed, and of course, feedback on our own presentation. Who attended were a number of universities, McGill University, University of Guelph, and Queen's University. There was Stats Canada, Service Canada, Innovation Science and Economic Development Canada, Fisheries and Oceans Canada, Canadian School of Public Service, Information and Communications Technology Council, Canada School of Public Service, Canada Post, Ontario Health, and CBC, and many more. It was, not our usual crowd, which made it really fascinating. Things discussed at the conference, I think, is important for us to know kind of what the topics are being discussed. AI, of course, was one of the number one things discussed, and how that fits into the public sector, where we can use it. Data usage, privacy, and consent. So we have all this data, and we need to make sure that we respect the privacy of whose information that is, and also ensure we get the consent to be able to use it in an effective way. There was, of course, the volume of data, because data has grown so much over the years. There was a lot of discussion about workforce skills, what's going to be needed moving forward, how we're going to retain and attract. There was department collaboration, the importance that all departments work together so you can have integrated data and be able to use that effectively. Data analytics related to descriptive, predictive, prescriptive, and integrated, which is really interesting. Descriptive is kind of what's happening now. Predictive is using data to predict what will happen. Prescriptive is to say what's our best path forward to achieve an outcome. And integrated, of course, is where that department collaboration comes in. It's where you take all of your data to paint a particular picture, get a better view. And of course, data governance and data quality. All things, well, not all, AI was probably not part of what we discussed, but in our presentation at the conference, we touched on many of the things that were being discussed at the conference. That was nice to see ahead of time, to know that we were on point for things that are even our project started in 2009, what we touched on and what we addressed were a lot of the things that were being discussed. Now the fun part, our presentation. And I'm going to tell you, there was a way I expected it to go. There was a way that I hoped it would go. And then there's the way that it went, which was beyond what I hoped. So that was really, really nice. We ended the first day, not the best spot. I did notice a couple people leave the room, and I thought, oh, darn. But most people stayed, which was fantastic. And I'm going to tell you, afterwards, there were about, I would say, my estimation is about 25% of the attendees provided feedback. Afterwards, we were having a little bit of a social. It took me quite a long time to get to a table because of all the people that came up and were asking questions, making comments. And I just have to tell you, because a lady I met in the morning, and we had a nice discussion over breakfast. I went to go to her table, and by the time I got there, this is what she said to me. She goes, "You're famous now. Everybody wants to talk to you." So I thought that was the best feedback ever, because it just shows you how many people were actually wanting to know more about what we were doing at the County of Newell. For me, there's two highlights. One was a lady came up to me and she said, their company does data management and data input for a number of other organizations. And she said, we've been trying to do what you guys have been doing for years. She goes, I'm going to show everybody at my organization your presentation. So they know it can be done, which was, I thought, really affirming for what we did. The second high point for me was day 2, the last presentation was by Fisheries and Oceans Canada. And he opened his presentation saying he took inspiration from 2 presentations at the conference. One was from the University of Guelph, and the second was from the County of Newell. It was unexpected, but very, very pleasing to hear. So I think it was a great success. I hope you all got to look at the presentation. It was included. And when I asked for a video, so they were videotaping everything, and they promised to send me a copy, and then I can share it with anyone who's interested in seeing. Any questions?
Great, thanks, Roberta. Neil, did you have a question?
I think that's absolutely fantastic to pull that off. And I would hate to be Matt with your wage negotiations.
You mean they're negotiable?
I would just really like to express appreciation and congratulations for the presentation and what you've achieved. And that predates most of us here, but I'm really glad to see that. And I think, you know, in the context of this council's discussion about what our priorities are in terms of putting us on the map, I mean, there's nothing that does that like success and excellence. And I think that's reflected in your presentation and your experience. So thank you very much. And you know, we're all proud of that. That's pretty incredible. And also, I think recognition of the challenge of integrating data. I mean, I have peripheral knowledge of even how to run a computer and navigate my way around, and I've seen and been involved in lots of data collection, but it's useless unless you can bring it together. And in an organization like ours, the matter of integrating it is important, and also creating history, right? And also management of all of that going forward. So I just really express our appreciation and admiration for what you've done, and congratulations for the success you had in Toronto. That's just great. I mean, it puts a spring in everyone's step, which is great, eh? Yeah, it's good. Holly, please.
2 things. One, I noticed that after kind of, you know, it said Alberta in brackets. Maybe one day we'll get the Alberta off. It'll just be, you know, the County of Newell. Everybody knows that's in Alberta. Secondly, though, what was it that made them contact you? Like, what was that trail? And you were kind of surprised and you were contacted. So how did that happen?
It's really, I had the same reaction. There was an invitation that invited me, you know, us to come speak. And at first, I thought it was a scam. I thought it was some kind of a phishing email, but I did some research about the organization to see if they were legit, and they appeared to be. So I did send her a message, and I asked her why she had chosen the County of Newell, that I told her I thought we would do a fantastic job, and we had a great story to tell, but I was curious why she thought so, or they thought so. All she came back and told me was that they needed a Western Canadian municipal government, so a token, I shouldn't say that. They needed representation from Western Canada and municipal government. I suspect she never did say why she chose the County of Newell, but this is what I suspect. They were looking for someone to do it. They probably Googled and saw that we had spoken at many other conferences. We did Economic Development in Alberta with our partnership with O2, who does our web map. They could invite another, you know, one of their partners, customers, and they chose us to present with them. We presented at MISA. We presented at the International Conference in Laserfish, based on the work we're doing with that system. I think there's a whole list. Oh, our Geospatial Maturity Index with the Public Sector Digest, because we have been 4 years we participated. There was 1 year, 2020, they didn't do it, but all other 4 years that we participated, We scored in the top 25, and in fact, we were 11, 9, or 10 and 9. And I was really curious how many, like cities, we scored higher than many major cities. And then we were the top performers in all organizations of our size. And they put on, anyone who was a top performer got opportunity to speak at workshops, and we did that. So I think what happened is they were looking to find, they probably weren't familiar with Western Canada municipalities. So they were looking, and I think we came up because we've been taking those opportunities when they've been presented to us.
That's impressive. Thanks for that. That's just exact, and I think it indicates, on a larger scale too, an organization that's on task, and that's pretty impressive. I mean, I have to personally, it's exciting to be part of a group that deals at that level of expertise. So thanks for your work in that, and congratulations to you and Matt and our whole crew. That's just excellent. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to share that because everybody who's here has worked towards that and made sacrifices. One of the stories with why we have such a great GIS system is operations was willing to suspend GIS services for a period to 6 to 9 months, and council provided us with budget to be able to build a strong structure. And without that happening, we couldn't have righted our GIS system to make it a success. So definitely a team effort from everybody, and to stay on task. And I know it wasn't easy all the time, and but we did it, and I am proud. I'm sorry, maybe I shouldn't be like that, but I'm very proud and feel privileged to have been part of it, and I think many of us here feel that way.
No, that's good. We acknowledge that and appreciate it too, because I think it indicates a cohesion that, and I mean, we all see that, but I think as elected representatives, we see too jurisdictions where people are off in different directions instead of working cohesively towards an identified goal, and that's impressive, and it certainly is impressive for all of us as elected representatives. So, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Speaking of staying on track, I'll get back on track. I guess I missed a couple of committee reports that were checked here, and we'll go back to them. First of all, Grasslands Regional FCSS. Holly, please.
Yeah, so we had our meeting on Tuesday evening and did the yearly funding for the FCSS applications, any of the bigger projects anyway. So a new one's being funded is Big Brothers and Big Sisters are coming from Medicine Hat and going to be doing work in our area to set up some an office, or at least work with Spec to have some staff here to do some matches and some programs in the schools, including some of the rural schools are the first ones on their list. So that's a good thing for our youth. Continuing with most of the programs. There's a little bit of extra funding this year because Grasslands did not continue their Be in the Know program for this year, the rest of this year, and returned their funding, so that allowed to have a little bit of extra funding as well. And yeah, the new executive director is Victoria, and so far she's doing a great job.
Okay, thanks, Holly. Question, Dina?
Did Grasslands give a reason why they were discontinuing the Be in the Know? Because I was really impressed with that.
Yeah, no, all we had is that they, the direction they're going no longer meets the FCS funding guidelines. That's all they had said, so really, yeah, I didn't get an answer for why it was a well-loved program though, so. As well, one that was run by a Med is also not continuing, it was a Global Village one, and I don't have the details on that either.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions about FCSS? If not, the other committee report I missed was PEP. Holly, I think you wanted to talk or present there.
Yeah, and Barb did a good job of talking about PEP today. Just two things is one, we're doing strategic planning again in early October 3rd or 4th. I'll check my agenda. I don't believe Dan can make it, of course, because he would be in school. So I'm wondering if Arno should go in his place, since Arno attended the first one, if council would accept that as an alternative. I think if you could have a second person, given it is strategic planning for the next 5 years, to have more input into that. As well, Mitch did attend the strategic planning as well, as he is our economic development officer. And I noted that most of the other regions who have an EDO are having them come to those meetings. And as Neil suggested, a good idea that maybe Councillor consider Mitch attending these meetings as well for the contacts and information.
Okay, thanks. We hadn't talked about that, but I'm willing to go if that's your request and that's council's wish. I found the meeting in Dutchess interesting and certainly see the potential there as well in terms of collaboration and focusing on key priorities. Neil? Oh.
Yeah, I think it's important that Mitch, I mean, he's working for Newell Brooks, should be at every one of those meetings, because you see it even in the last couple of years. FCSS will be doing their thing in the region, and PEP will be doing theirs, and Brooks Dual Region is doing theirs. To have Mitch there to at least know what's going on, to cover up some of that overlap, put out the information that we're doing here, is a really good idea. Otherwise, you just have different songs coming from every different area. So, no, good idea.
Okay, thanks. Anything else? We're covered there. Okay, now we're done our committee reports. Let's move to back to item number 12.2, Alberta Community Partnership Intermunicipal Collaboration Grant. Welcome, Jeff.
Good morning, everyone. I apologize for the late addition to the agenda here. In front of you today is an RFD for a motion of support to submit a grant application in partnership with the City of Brooks, who would be the managing partner, and MPE Engineering for a regional sewer study. This grant funding is supplied under the Alberta Community Partnership Intermunicipal Collaboration Grant, and we would be applying for a grant in the amount of $200,000. As noted in the RFD, there is no financial matching contribution necessary. So this grant application would cover the entire funding of the study. A little bit of history about the study. There's been a number of sewer studies done in the region, both based on capacity and treatment in the past. The City of Brooks is definitely looking into their ultimate goal of treating wastewater, and not only treating it, but how it's released currently into the EID's network. There are capacity issues and future capacity issues that are apparent, and I think the biggest goal of the study here will be to finally produce a plan to move forward with wastewater treatment for the City of Brooks as well. They do treat currently Lake Newell Resort sewage. It gets pumped from the force main up into their lift stations and goes out to the lagoons as well. In the partnership aspect of this project, I think speaking with Andrew with MPE and Don with the city, there's a lot that needs to be looked at when they're talking about the end treatment of the wastewater currently happening in the lagoon system north and east of the City of Brooks for the city. And what that is we need to look at future capacity, and we need to take a look at what other possibilities are there regionally, whether it's from our urban areas, our urban partners. They're going to meet with JBS Canada again to talk about their wastewater needs and see what can be done ultimately to better the regional wastewater collection system, to protect the environment, to protect our ratepayers, and to make sure all the partners that have a hand in this, the county, the city, the towns, any private partners, and the irrigation district as well, are well protected with whatever solution is found. This study will include a lot of new engineering efforts in the field and whatnot, but it's also going to take into account the previous studies that have been done and kind of amalgamate those into one centralized study. I think that's about all I have to present on it. Again, just looking for a motion of support so the city can apply for this grant. And we got it on today because the deadline for the application is October 2nd. And City Council did discuss this on Monday at their council meeting and provided a motion of support as well.
Okay, thanks for that, Jeff. Are there any other questions or any questions? for Jeff. Kelly, please.
Is this study localized around the peripheral of the city of Brooks, or how far out into the county are we reaching?
Well, some of the previous studies have looked at even servicing some of the urban areas with wastewater collection and treatment services. So while I think that there will be a lot of work done in capacity around the Brooks, I think the study some councillors might be most familiar with is the Southwest Sanitary Study. I think that through the work being done at this study, it should provide good tools to help assess where future development and you know, residential, commercial, industrial could go around the city. But I do think it's going to retouch on some of those facts where it does go out to the urbans and outside of that. I mean, I don't think it's going to be as far as, you know, servicing farmyards and so on and so forth like our regional potable water system does, but it will extend outside the immediate vicinity or maybe the IDP area of Brooks. But I think that would be a central focus, the area around Brooks, and kind of estimating some of those capacities and seeing where might be the best option to proceed with future development.
Okay, thanks. Kelly, a follow-up, and then Amanda?
Yeah, I was just willing to make a motion
Okay.
to
To approve, I'll accept the motion to approve the recommendation, but take just a second. Amanda, you had a question?
Jeff, has there been a study in the past?
There's been a number of studies done, actually, you know, and the most recent studies that were done strictly on looking at different options for City of Brooks to update their treatment method from the lagoon treatment. They've looked at a number of different things, mechanical treatment plants. They've looked at new lagoon systems, and you know, technology is ever growing. That there's a host of new and sometimes unproven treatment methods. So there has been some studies in the past pricing out some of that. There has been previous discussions with JBS, and then there's been a host of other studies looking at capacity in and around Brooks and the different quadrants and whatnot. And one thing, like I mentioned, this study is going to do is amalgamate and relook at the numbers and some of the effectiveness and efficiencies that were proved from those studies and amalgamate it into this study.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions? We have a motion to approve as per the recommendation. All in favor of that, please indicate. That's carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff. With that, we'll move back to item number 7.2, review of the fire bylaw 1958-19. Welcome, Stuart. Good to see you here this morning, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Reverend Council, and I thank you for letting me come in this morning and talking about the fire bylaw 1858-19. This fire bylaw was reviewed and brought to council back in 2019. This review was done with myself and outgoing Fire Chief Keith Martins. We've had some questions have recently been raised regarding a few provisions within the bylaw, with a formal fire service needs assessment currently underway and also being at the end of what was being a very dry, hot summer. It is appropriate to carry out a review on this bylaw with the intention of being to ensure that it addresses outgoing needs. The bylaw itself will be reviewed during my mutual aid meeting, my quarterly mutual aid meeting with my county fire chiefs on October 18th, so that we can discuss it. And it's anticipated that after input from council, the fire chiefs, we want to involve the CPOs this time. A little bit of history. Last time when Keith and I did it, we did the bylaw, didn't really engage the CPOs as much as maybe we should have, which is part of the reason for the review is the vagueness between the penalty implementation and what is written in the bylaw and being able to hand that penalty out. So we really want to have a good grasp that the verbiage between the penalty to what the bylaw is to what we actually have on our fire permit as well, all match each other so that we're successful if a penalty is needed to be implemented. With that, it says here for consideration by council later this fall, meeting with my needs assessment team, my fire service needs assessment team on Monday. That final report isn't due out till probably late November, maybe even into the first week in December. So I actually anticipate that maybe I would come back to council after those recommendations have been brought in, maybe in January or February with a final draft. I think it's important that we get this reviewed and done before our next fire season starts at the end of March, beginning of April. So that is my anticipation, is to have it done and to you for approval before then. The recommendation is that council engage in a discussion and provide input in provisions within the County Fires Bylaw 1958-19 that may require revision or further consideration.
Okay, thanks for that, Stuart. Are there specific questions? And you're welcoming specific questions with regard to the bylaw as it's presented. Go ahead, Holly.
First of all, I hope that fire season ends before it starts again in March. I hope we get some moisture. That would be nice. 27.2, when determining whether to declare a fire ban or burning in the County of Newell, there's the following factors. How do you weight? Do we need a weighting on those factors, or like who makes the final decision? How is that done? It doesn't really clarify in there.
So the decision factoring when we go to deciding whether it's an advisory a restriction or a ban is consultation with myself and the other 10 fire chiefs within the County of Newell. We have a discussion, we talk about the current conditions, we talk about what we anticipate the conditions to be moving forward in the coming months, and then from there do a vote on what level we should put within the County of Newell. And then from there, that's how the decision is made, and we carry on.
Okay, thank you. Follow up, Holly?
So the decision ultimately is made by the fire chiefs? Because yours is on the recommendation, but you're saying ultimately it's the voting that makes the decision? That policy doesn't spell that out, so I'm just wondering if you want to, that should be spelled out that way, or?
Yeah, it was felt that 27 area there definitely is an area that needs to be looked at 100%, even redefining in a restriction when it comes to fireworks. Is it all fireworks, or is it only low hazard residential fireworks, and we're still allowing the professionals to light the fireworks off within the County of Newell, to where if you go to the ban it states that all fireworks aren't allowed. So definitely the verbiage within that section 27 within the 3 restrictions needs to be looked at and revamped. I think it states pretty good that it is the fire chief in consultation, or it actually says, and this is another reason for the review, it still says the coordinator, the rule coordinator, to which I'm the regional fire chief now. So that verbiage has to change a little bit, but it's the fire chief in consultation with the regional fire chief in consultation with all the municipal or all the small fire departments make that decision, or fire chiefs make that decision. And in my absence, it would be the reeve and the fire chiefs, or it says council would have the directive to, if they all voted together, to do that. So we can definitely look at that and find a better way to word that to show that the process and how we get to making that decision on what happens.
Okay, thanks, Stuart. Kelly?
So that conversation kind of leads into the posting of signage. It's been posted at all our entrances all year long that there's a fire ban on, and there isn't. So I feel like we're misleading the public.
Very good point there, Councillor Christensen. And I've had conversation even last year and going into this year I think the reason I get Public Works to, or Terry's team to put the signs up when we go to restriction, it's about information and letting everybody know that the conditions are very dry here. We don't have a signage that says restriction, so it goes to the ban, and you're right. I believe it is misleading, and maybe we just don't put the sign up until it becomes a ban. But at the same token, those that don't live in the county of Newell would never know that we were in a restriction. Having said that, if they're visitors, they're coming to basically do camping, and within the restriction, campfires are still allowed. So,
yeah, residents drive by those signs as well. And so that's who I hear from. Well, there is no fire ban on, but we can get new signs made. There's a sign company right in town that makes signage, so I think we can appropriately mark.
yeah, there's a couple things to that. I agree with that, and it probably wouldn't cost much for the signs. In some ways, it's the time by the other department that assists me in getting those signs in, and the labor to do that kind of thing as well, right? When they're busy doing their day-to-day, and they, maybe have to put a sign up once, but now if we're going to go to restriction, then go to ban, and they're forever changing that sign, it becomes a bit of an issue with that labor-wise, right? Or time for those people to do it when they could be mowing grass, could be doing other things.
Okay, thanks. Matt, you had a comment on that?
Yeah, I'd be interested in the review of the fire bylaw. I question the value of the signs altogether. There's a number of municipalities I drive through that don't have similar signage at all. So as we go through the fire bylaw review and with the chiefs, if we could look at, is that one of the things that we do that we could just stop doing altogether? But I'd leave it to the chiefs to assess the risk and the value of that advertising for folks coming through the region.
Okay, thank you. Adina, you had...
Well, I was just going to say, there's nothing I love more than having somebody contact me about the fire ban, and I say it's a restriction, and then they argue with me because, I don't know what I'm talking about. So in this world where nobody trusts the government anymore, I just feel like what's the point of, why couldn't we just remove them like other counties do, right?
Okay, thank you. And I think that's something that you'll consider in your discussion. Holly?
The other one was number 28. I'm sorry. Number 28, council may in its absolute discretion suspend or cancel a fire permit anytime. It just feels like that must relate to some sort of event that was in there, because it doesn't say about a fire ban or a fire restriction. It just, how often does any council cancel a fire permit? I don't understand why that is in there.
Yeah, that is a very good point that's in there. I did notice it, and I would assume that, yes, it would probably be maybe that landowner did something very egregious, and we spent a lot of resources to mitigate and stop whatever happened from that. I can think of one in the last 5 years where we had a situation where we had multiple departments come in for a burn that everybody knew the wind was going to pick up, and it did, and it got away from the person. So I guess in that case, it would probably be something that would be brought forth to council of that happened, and then it would be the council's decision to just revoke that permit. We've normally just taken the permit away, never even thought of it. So it's...
Okay, thanks. I have a question with regard to the restrictions and permissions with regard to a fire ban. Those are all considered individually. And just a question. I noticed that wood pellet-based fully contained smokers are banned during a fire ban, and I don't understand. That's a fully contained container and pretty common, kind of like barbecues are in the countryside now. Is there a reason that I don't understand why? Is there a higher risk for that than say a barbecue, a gas-fired barbecue?
I think with a gas-fired barbecue, it's a burner with fuel that ignites and continues burning, and when you shut the switch off, it shuts off. With a wood smoker pellet, I would equate it to kind of like briquettes, where you light them on fire, they heat up, they create the environment, but then when they break down, they become light and have the ability to float away. So now when a person has a wood smoker pellet and has to restoke it and they open it up, is there a chance for something like that to happen? So when we do a fire ban and we don't want to risk having any chance of any fire happening anywhere, I think that's probably why the wood pellet was put in there at the time. So definitely something I can review with my chiefs and do a little research on to see if it is necessary for it to be in that full ban or not, or do we consider it just a barbecue and we're good to go?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just interested more than anything, and I would observe, maybe I'm wrong, but I think they're a lot more, there's more people that own those today than there was 15 years ago, let's say. And I wonder, in terms of enforcement of that, and that's just if you're gonna, I think it's a good idea to review that with
absolutely. One comment I'd make with that, if more people own it, the risk is greater that something could happen. So I would think that we'd probably want to do a real evaluation on and say, how are they compared to a briquette, right? We know that in apartment blocks on decks, briquette barbecues through the province aren't allowed, right? That's a restriction right from the province of Alberta, because when those briquettes break down, they float, get into areas that you don't know are there, and then start fires.
So watered down properly or something. Absolutely. So and I'm not suggesting an outcome. I'm just observing or making an observation. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions or comments? And Kelly, go ahead.
Yeah. Just quickly, Stuart. We work like this with our urban partners. Does this bylaw need to reflect that in any way?
I believe it does. We've come to realize, even within our fire service, Ashley and I sit here, work hard at creating SOPs, SOGs, to go out to the fire departments. And it came to our attention, I think it was just last year, where we don't have Town of Bazzano, Village of Dutchess, Rosemary. We didn't have those names on the SOP itself. So from a risk perspective for each one of those municipalities, it says the County of Newell. It doesn't say the Town of Bazzano, for instance. So really, does that SOP really apply to you or not? So yeah, giving definition to those municipalities somewhere within the bylaw, I think makes sense to do that, just so that from a legal perspective, we're covered off.
Yeah, so that we're...
Absolutely.
And as per your presentation, this will come back to us sometime later within the year. So yeah, okay. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, thanks for the presentation, Stuart. Yeah. I think that brings us to information items. Are there any questions with regard to what is presented in our agenda by way of information? Holly?
I was just curious, under the payment register, we're paying for porta potties with Vibrook for Steveville, Rosemary, and Bazzano. I was just curious what the porta potties would have been used for.
How much detail? Oh, yeah. Please, yeah. No.
Leading me down a path.
Oh, no.
Going to get myself in trouble. Steveville, I imagine, is your gravel pit. I can get into those and get you a specific, gravel pit. Rosemary could be the greater compound.
Okay, that makes sense. I couldn't.
Bazzano could be the greater too, because I think our pit is all mined out.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions with regard to the information items?
Just
go ahead.
On Mitch's, the Brooks Newell Region Economic Development Update, interesting. I've just noted they again have a site called movetobrooks.ca. And although much of the things they talk about are going to the lake and going to Dinosaur Park and the wonderful amenities, again, it's moved to brooks.ca, not moved to brooksnewell.ca. And it's a constant thorn, I'll put it that way.
Okay, thank you. That's noted. Any other, oh, Kelly, go ahead.
I like the prickly holly.
Yeah. Okay, good. Seeing no other questions or comments, I think we're ready to move in camera, and being 5 to 12, I'll ask council's permission that we move in camera before lunch. Is that comfortable with that? Is there a motion to move in camera? Or, okay, with a motion to move in camera, Kelly, thank you. All in favor that we move in camera? That's carried, thank you.
Then recess.
Pardon me?
We'll recess for lunch, or do you want to do it in camera right now?
Oh, shall we recess for lunch and then go in camera? Okay, let's recess for lunch.